Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Candice. It has been a few weeks since I put out a video. Life got hectic, things happened. One of my poor kitties is now wearing the cone of shame. She had to get stitches. It's been a whole hoopla for these last few weeks. But today I am finally getting on here to do another video for you guys. We are going to be talking about how God, Jesus, they'll take us wherever we are, right? But what I don't think a lot of us realize when going into, a relationship with God and Jesus is the fact that our lives are going to drastically change. It may take years, of course, but our lives will drastically change. We will drastically change from the people that we used to be. We're going to get into that, but first I'm going to pray for this video. God, thank you so much for taking us wherever we are. Even in our most horrible, broken moments, you are there, and you will take us no matter what we've done, or who we've hurt, or how much craziness is going on in our lives. Thank you for taking us, and not just taking us and leaving us where we are in our brokenness, but taking us and changing us, fixing us, putting us through things that we might not find pleasant, but in the end end up really working out for our good and teaching us the lessons that we need to know. Thank you for always being there with us through every step of the way and giving us your strength. I pray that you would give strength and courage to whoever's listening to this video right now, and that you would bless their lives. I ask in Jesus Christ's name. Okay, so I don't know about you guys, right? But when I originally came to the faith, right? When I had my come to Jesus moment sort of a deal, I had no preconception of how much I would change over the years, right? How much I would grow, how many things that God would take and prune out of my life and get rid of, right? I had no clue. Now, of course, I was a teenager when this happened, but I think a lot of adults too who have this moment where they finally accept God and Jesus into their lives, right? They don't fully understand or fully comprehend, right, that their lives are going to change. The way that they are now is not the way they're going to be 5 years from now. And I'm not just talking about regular human growth. I'm talking about supernatural. God's going to be taking things off of you that you've been dealing with for years. God's going to break sin out of your life that's habitual, all of these different changes that God does in our lives to make us closer to Him, to bring us into a better existence, right? To make us better human beings. He does all of these changes. And I think if we knew exactly how many changes He was going to make in our lives, or at least we knew the end result was that we were going to be much better off, right? We probably wouldn't fight all of those changes along the way, and we'd go along with them a little bit better. First, of course, we're going to get into this. We're going to go into the Bible. If you have yours, go ahead and crack it open too. If you don't, you can always do a Bible app on your phone, or you can just listen to me read it. We're going to be talking about John chapter 15, okay? We're going to start in the beginning, and I'm going to interject things, and then we'll keep going. John chapter 15, and this is Jesus talking. It's all in red, letters in my Bible. It says, "I am the true vine, and my Father is the husbandman." So he's making, a gardening analogy here, basically saying He is the vine and God is the gardener who's taking care of the vine, right? "Every branch in me," so people are the branches, right? "Every branch in me that beareth not fruit, He taketh away. And every branch that beareth fruit, He purgeth it," so He prunes it, "that it may bring forth more fruit." We're going to stop right there for now. So what he's saying is that when we come into the faith, right, we are grafted into this vine, right? We are a branch in the vine. That's Jesus, and God is taking care of this vine. God is pruning it, taking dead branches off, things that are sapping the life out of the vine and the branches, right? He takes things off of it to make it grow better, to make it have more fruit. The fruit is all the good things that we do in our lives, right? How we interact with other people, how we share, excuse me, how we share God, with other people, how we give our testimonies, right? How we just impact other people in a positive way. These are all fruits, right, that we bear. And if we're not bearing any fruit, God's going to take that branch off because it's basically dead, right? But this is the kind of thing where God will take us and he'll prune us. And this pruning, okay, this pruning is not always pleasant, or at least we don't always feel it is pleasant, okay? God will take things off of us one at a time. Some people, okay, in the Bible did have like a radical transformation of Jesus was there, Jesus healed them or whatever, and then he said, go sin no more, and their lives were, pretty much changed. But I think for a lot of us, God does this in a slow method, right? Like he'll take us where we're at and kind of work at our pace. So in the beginning, when you first come to him, right, you might have all these issues, right? Anger, trust issues, perfectionism, procrastination, habitual sin, or an addiction, or this, that, and the other, right? And we all have lots of them when we first come to Jesus, like a whole bucket full, right? God will take whatever one is the particular main one that he needs to start with, and he knows which ones to start with, of course. For some people, it might be trust issues. For some people, it might be your anger that he deals with first. For some people, it might be the fact that you're lying a lot, or doing this or doing that, right? Or a habitual habit of getting drunk on the weekends to escape life, like he'll take whatever one that is the most pressing issue, right? And he'll deal with that one first, right? So for me personally, because I can only speak personally, right? For me, when I first came to him, I had a lot of issues, right? We all do. My biggest one that he needed to deal with first was my anger issues, right? I was a teenager at the time, of course, there's normal teenage angst, but then there's like a whole nother level, and I was like way up there somewhere, okay? So he knew that in order for me to deal with some of the other issues later on, the anger issue needed to be cleared up first, right? For some of you, it's going to be a lust issue. For some of you, it's going to be a broken trust with family issue, etc., etc. Whatever is the most pressing, he's going to deal with you on, all right? And he dealt with me on that first. Was it pleasant to go through some of the things and the healing in order to let go of those anger issues? Not particularly. I was a teenager. I fought it every step of the way. I mean, come on, what teenager doesn't, right? But on the other end of it, right, once those anger issues were gone, once I no longer had to deal with that, right, once it was no longer a problem in my life, I felt a lot better, right? We come out on the other side much better, right? Then he picked another issue, and that issue started getting dealt with. And then he picked social anxiety, right? And that one was not pleasant to deal with at the beginning, right? Like, I think a lot of us, when we go through the beginning stages of dealing with one of these issues, right, we can easily give up, right? Or be like, oh no, this is too hard. I'm not going to touch that. I'm not going to deal with that, right? But if we push through, right, if we ask God for strength and we push through these issues, we come out so much better on the other side, not having to deal with them anymore, right? So for me, social anxiety was a big thing for a while, right? I had no problems talking to like one or two people at a time, right? Because when you're talking to one or two people, you can get to deeper conversations quicker, right? For me, the biggest issue was I had no idea how to do small talk, like at all, especially in like a large crowd. So of course, to fix this, God was like, hey, I want you to go to these social engagements that have gigantic crowds, and you're just going to keep going, and you're going to learn as you go along. Like, was it pleasant? Did I want to do it? Not particularly, but at that point, God had started building my trust with him, right? So I knew that if I went, ultimately, it was going to work out for my good. Now, the going was not easy, right? I would go, and I mean, the first time I went to one of these social events that he had me going to, I went, and I basically had a panic attack in the car. I waited till the last possible second where I could still be on time but not late before walking in, right? Went in, was there very awkwardly, was like freaking out, quaking in my boots, right? And went into this thing, and the moment it was acceptable to leave, I booked it out of there, okay? Like, and the thing was, it wasn't just a doing this once and going through it once and it was done, right? Like, the issue wasn't cured in one night. I had probably the first 15 to 20 times that I went, right, to these social engagements, I went through the same process. Panic attack in the car, you know, walking inside and going to the bathroom to kill a few more minutes of not having to talk to people, and then, you know, the whole process over and over again. Now, eventually, right, eventually, I actually started talking to some people. I got to know one or two people. So being able to go into one of these social events and like actually knowing that there's someone there that is like your default person that you can go and talk to, like, that helped a great deal. And as I, you know, kept going, kept pushing myself to go, right, the anxiety lessened, right? It didn't happen overnight, my goodness, no. Like, it took like over a year for me to be able to walk into these situations and like be confident walking in and not have that mini panic attack in the car, right? So was it pleasant to go through those every single time and to be sitting there, you know, with your heart palpitating and, you know, sweating and just, you know, freaking out? No, of course it wasn't pleasant, right? But I asked God for strength each and every time. Okay, God, help me get through this. Help me go in and talk to people and learn how to do this, because this is an issue I have, right? This is something that I am incredibly aware of that is a problem in my life, right? Not being able to have small talk with people is a problem. So I knew it was something I needed to fix. And I knew it was something only God could fix, and I could only get through with God's help. And He helped me do that, right? Now, on the other end of things, I don't have this issue anymore, right? Like, I don't have the problem anymore. And I am now confident that I can go into a scenario, small talk with some people if I want to, but ultimately I can also walk out if I want to, you know? Like, there's not this fear and anxiety all wrapped up in these things anymore. And so it's beautiful on the other side. Had I known, you know, when I was going through all the painful stuff, that how great it was going to be on the other side, it would have motivated me probably even more to work through it, right, faster than I did. Right? And like, not procrastinate about it. And God will do this. For me personally, He did one issue at a time, or maybe two tops at a time, right? Because He knew I needed to work through an issue in its entirety, because then those skills that I learned in that last issue apply to working through the next one, right? For some people, He can do a lot more than that at the same time, depending on, you know, whatever pace is the best for you, right? But He takes us and He changes us. He prunes off the dead things, right? Dead things like sin, anxiety, fear, worry, doubts, trust issues, anger issues, you know, trying to escape into random addictions because, you know, we don't like our life or don't want to deal with the things that we need to deal with. There's another one. You know, He will go through and He will break all of those things off. Does it sting when it happens? Yes. You know, breaking something off can hurt for a minute, right? But when we've healed from those things, they're all gone. They're no longer sapping the life out of us, right? So those anger issues that I had, I no longer deal with that. And I no longer have to put like the effort and the energy into dealing with those emotions, right? Like, it just doesn't bother me anymore. Like, the things that bothered me don't bother me anymore. Like, trust issues, I had those too. Those don't really bother me anymore that much. Now, there's still some things I work out with God here and there. You know, there's still a few things hanging out in that bucket that God's going to work on with me through the rest of my life, right? But He changes us, and we are not going to be the same as we were when we first came to Him. Hi, little baby. What are you doing? Trying to knock my computer over? So, as we go through and as we learn to trust Him and He breaks those things off, I just want to encourage you not to get discouraged, right? because it is easy to get discouraged when you are walking through trials, right? When you are dealing with issues and it's like causing you anxiety, or you're dealing with issues and they're just really depressing you, or, you know, anxiety, depression, all of the things. You know, just keep going and keep asking God for strength, and He will take you through it. And it's so beautiful on the other side that you will not even be mad, okay, about the issues of going through it and like having to deal with that. Let's keep going. John chapter 15. We're on verse 3. Now you are clean through the word which I have spoken unto you. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself, except it abide in the vine, no more can you, except you abide in me. I'm just changing the ye's to you's, okay, to make it a little easier. But like a branch that's fallen to the ground, it's no longer fruitful, it's no longer alive, right? We get our strength from the vine, we get our strength from God and from Jesus, right? So when we're going through these horrible things, seeking God for strength is the best way to do it, because let's face it, none of us are going to be able to work through all of these issues in our own strength. It'd be impossible for us to do it in our own strength, right? We need Him to do it. Moving on. If a man abide not in me, he is cast forth as a branch, and is withered, and men gather them and cast them into the fire, and they are burned. If ye abide in me, and my words abide in you, you shall ask what you will, and it shall be done unto you. Herein is my Father glorified, that ye bear much fruit, so shall you be my disciples. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Continue you in my love. If you keep my commandments, you shall abide in my love, even as I have kept my Father's commandments, and abide in his love. These things have I spoken unto you, that my joy might remain in you, and that your joy might be full. Right? When I first read through this chapter, it was probably through one of the struggling parts of going through an issue, right? And healing from it and dealing with it. And I'm like, joy? What are you talking about, joy? I'm not having any joy right now. But now, being on the other side of these issues, I understand what he means, right? Because when you're on the other side and you're no longer dealing with a lot of those major issues, right? The major things that are holding you back, the major things that keep you up at night, the major things that make you afraid or make you angry, like when you're no longer dealing with a lot of those, you can be joyful, right? And you are joyful because you're like, okay, I'm no longer dealing with these things, I'm free. I am able to be happy and joyful because I'm not constantly worrying or constantly stressing about different things, you know? Where was I? This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. You are my friends if you do whatsoever I command you. Now here's the thing. I think where this can come into play is we go to church, right? Or sometimes not if you don't have a church home. We, see other people, coming to the faith. And I think honestly we focus, right? Some of us can focus on seeing like a major issue that somebody has, especially like if you're related to the person or you're friends with the person, right? You see this major issue that needs to be dealt with, right? Okay. And so you pray to God and you're asking God, please fix this major issue in their life, please fix it. And you might not see progress on that. And you can start resenting the person or start judging the person, really. But I think what we need to keep in mind is that God works with each of us at a different pace. And that issue that might be like bold and in your face sort of an issue, right, might not be the root issue that they need to deal with. There might be 4 other things that God is working on them through before he can deal with that issue, before they're ready to go through that, right? Before they're ready to deal with whatever that is and what the root of it is, right? So God might be working with them on other things first, but we can be preoccupied with whatever the most visible problem is, right? But I think we just need to pray for each other, and that God will take us, each person, through what they need to deal with in the pace that they need it, and that's the pace that's best for them, and in the order that's best for them, right? So for me, my anger issues had to be dealt with first, right? For somebody else, it might be some hurt from their past that they need to deal with first before they can move on and do the other things. It might be, a particular sin issue that God has to deal with them on first before he can deal with other things. They might have anger issues too, right? They might have explosive anger issues that are very visible, right? But God might have to deal with them on a few different things before he can get to their anger, right? I know I had some issues that were a lot more visible, but God had to deal with my anger first. It just depends on the person, and God does it in whatever way is best for each individual. We need to keep that in mind. Where are we going? Henceforth I call you not servants, for the servant knoweth not what his Lord doeth. But I have called you friends, for all things that I have heard of my Father I have made known unto you. You have not chosen me, but I have chosen you, and ordained you, that you should go and bring forth fruit, and that your fruit should remain, that whatsoever you shall ask of the Father in my name, he may give it to you. Now, a little aside that isn't really part of this video, but the asking things and getting them ties into the as you change, right? So if you're actually abiding in God, you are spending time with him, you are communing with him daily, right? You're in his word, you're developing that relationship with him and that trust with him. As you do that, you're not going to be asking for things that are outside of his will, right? So as you get closer to him, your heart aligns with his, right? So the things you ask for are usually things that are already in his will. And if they're not in his will, then obviously they're not going to happen. You might ask for $1 million, but if that's not in his will for your life, it's not going to happen. But as you get closer to him, again, your heart changes and you're less likely to ask for those things that are outside of his will anyway. Moving on. These things I command you, that you love one another. If the world hates you, you know that it hated me before I hated you. And when we change, right, as we change, as we deal with our issues, right, we are going to look less and less like the world, right? We are going to look different from all of the people out there who don't believe in God, right? Our lives are going to look different. As he deals with us, we might not be listening to that secular music that we used to listen to that was very violent, right? As we change, our taste in movies might change. The way we dress can change for some of us, right? Like, we might go from being very skimpy to wearing things that are way more modest. Like, as God deals with us on all of these different issues, it changes things in our lives. And these changes are not things that the world agrees with. Especially this day and age, right? I mean, if you go from being skimpy to being more modest, like, everyone else is going to assume you're judging them or something, and there could be issues, like, put your way, because they're insecure and having problems with themselves and projecting that onto you, right? In the same way where if you used to go out and party every weekend, right, and like get drunk to the point where you don't remember what happened the night before, right? You get with God, your life starts changing. You don't feel the need to numb yourself anymore because God healed you from whatever trauma it was that caused you to want to numb yourself on the weekends, right? So you don't want to go out with your friends anymore and get drunk, and they might start judging you for it, right? They might start hating you because your lifestyle is now different from what it used to be, right? But we are supposed to look different from the world. Here we go. If you were of the world would love its own. But because you are not of the world, but I have chosen you out of the world, therefore the world hateth you. This is also something that I think, when we first come to God, we need to realize that we should be on the warning label, right? Of faith, if you will. That as you get closer to him and as you become more joyful because he's pruning all these things off of you, you're bearing more fruit, you're more concerned about his will in your life than your own or anybody else's, right? you're not going to really fit in with a lot of the worldly things, you know, like just a lot of the things we do are not what other people are doing, okay? Like, a lot of the ways we act are not the ways that other people act. A lot of the things that I don't allow into my home, a lot of other people allow into their homes. You know, like, I avoid certain things for certain reasons, and other people find that weird, or they'll find that countercultural, right? And you'll speak out against certain things because you know the truth, right? You've seen the truth in the Bible, right? You know God, and so you might say something that is the truth according to God's word, right? But it might deeply offend somebody else because they don't believe the same thing, right? So there are persecutions that happen. There are things where your friend group that you have before you start going with God and changing might not be the same friend group you end up having later, right? People who you knew back then might despise you by the time you're done changing. And that ultimately ends up being for your good, God separating you from people who are not going to be a good influence on you, but it's something that can be challenging, okay? But ultimately it is for your good. Now, where were we? Remember the word that I said unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord. If they have persecuted me, so they persecuted Jesus, right? They will also persecute you. If they have kept my saying, they will keep yours also. But all these things will they do unto you for my name's sake, because they know not him that sent me. If I had not come and spoken unto them, they had not had sin. But now they have no cloak for their sin. He that hateth me hateth my Father also. If I had not done among them the works which none other man did, they had not had sin. But now they have both seen and hated both me and the Father. Right? So in ignorance, you know, they didn't really understand who he was before, but once Jesus came, right, there was no more just saying, well, I didn't know, right? Because Jesus was there. He told people it was right. He told people it was wrong, right? And if they hated him for that, that means they also don't really know God very well, right? But this cometh to pass, that the word might be fulfilled that is written in their law, they hated me without a cause. But when the Comforter is come, whom I will send unto you from the Father, even the Spirit of truth, which proceedeth from the Father, he shall testify of me. And ye shall also bear witness, because you have been with me from the beginning. These changes that God makes in our lives are not always going to be easy, right? They're not always going to be pleasant. They are not always going to feel loving, right? In the same way that when a parent chastises a child or punishes a child for something, or even just says, no, we can't go get ice cream today because you're already not feeling well and having extra sugar is not good for you, right? In that same way, it might not feel loving, but ultimately it is for good. So, when the changes come, when the issues arise and you need to deal with them, right? Ask God for strength, ask God for help, and he will help you get through all these things. He will help you heal from all these things. And on the other side, things are so much better. I think a lot of people just kind of expect that, come to Jesus, now everything's butterflies and rainbows, and, you know, nothing bad is ever going to happen again, or nothing's ever going to be difficult because now I have Jesus. But, you know, things are difficult as he is purging you of the things that no longer serve you. There are still going to be times that are difficult. There are still going to be times where you are going to feel run down, right? There are going to be times when you're going through a season of testing, and it's not going to be the easiest thing in the world. Like, I had it for a few weeks here. I've been off of YouTube, right, for a few weeks. And God had this happen, and that happened, and this thing happened, and then that happened, and then my cat needed stitches, and then this, and then that, you know, and it can be a lot, right? But as you go through these trials, as you go through these lessons, and as he teaches you and prunes things off of you, it does get much better in the long run. think that's about it for today. Alright guys, I'll talk to you next time. Bye.